7-year-old Emma Rodriguez was playing near the broken fence of the abandoned Wildwood Safari Park when the 400-pound male lion named Caesar escaped from his enclosure, his powerful roar echoing through the Texas countryside as he spotted the small girl who had wandered too close to what should have been a secure barrier. The child froze in terror as the massive predator, hungry and agitated from weeks of poor care at the failing wildlife facility, began stalking toward her with the calculated precision of an apex predator who had found easy prey. "Mommy!" Emma screamed, her tiny voice barely audible over Caesar's thunderous roar as the lion crouched into attack position, his golden eyes fixed on the defenseless child who stood no chance against 400 pounds of muscle, claws, and instinct. That's when the rumble started. 12 members of the Texas Brotherhood MC were returning from a charity ride for wildlife conservation when Club President Marcus "Steel" Rodriguez heard something that made every protective instinct he possessed explode into action. The unmistakable sound of a child's scream, followed by a lion's roar. These leather-clad warriors were about to face the most dangerous rescue in their organization's history, proving that real heroes don't hesitate when innocent life needs protection, even when that protection means facing down one of nature's most deadly predators with nothing but courage and determination. Would you like to join us for this incredible journey? Subscribe to our channel now so you don't miss what happens next. The Texas Brotherhood Motorcycle Club had been riding the highways of Texas for over 14 years, their membership consisting entirely of military veterans and emergency responders who had found brotherhood and purpose through their commitment to protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. What had started as weekend rides among former Marines had evolved into one of the most respected emergency response organizations in the Southwest. Marcus "Steel" Rodriguez, the 46-year-old former Marine Force recon commander who led the Brotherhood, was concluding their monthly charity ride to raise funds for wildlife conservation when his combat-trained hearing detected something that made every alarm in his protective system detonate simultaneously. The combination of a child's terrified scream and a lion's roar was unmistakable to someone who had served in regions where such sounds meant immediate life or death crisis. "All units, code red emergency," Steele commanded through his helmet radio to the 11 riders behind him. "Child in immediate mortal danger, large predator involved. This is the real deal, brothers. Someone's about to die if we don't act now." The response was instantaneous and overwhelming. 12 motorcycles began converging on Steele's coordinates with military precision, their engines creating a mechanical thunder that announced the arrival of men who had spent their careers facing impossible odds to protect innocent life. Captain Derek "Tank" Williams, a former Army Ranger who served as the Brotherhood's tactical coordinator, was first to establish visual contact with what would become the most dangerous rescue in their organization's history. "Visual confirmation," he radioed with controlled urgency. 7-year-old female, Hispanic, approximately 50 feet from large male lion. Cat is in stalking posture, preparing to attack. Through his military-grade binoculars, Tank could see Emma Rodriguez standing paralyzed with terror as Caesar approached with the patient, deadly focus of a predator who had identified easy prey. The child's bright pink dress made her clearly visible against the brown grass, but her complete stillness was the only thing preventing the lion from triggering his chase instinct immediately. "Jesus fucking Christ," whispered Staff Sergeant Rick "Doc" Patterson, a former Navy SEAL medic whose combat experience had included operations in regions where dangerous wildlife was a constant threat. "That cat weighs at least 400 pounds. One swipe of his paw will kill her instantly." Steele felt his Marine Corps training engage as he processed the tactical nightmare they were facing. A child trapped by an apex predator represented the kind of impossible rescue scenario that required split-second decision-making, perfect coordination, and the willingness to sacrifice everything to protect innocent life. "All units, immediate intervention protocol," Steele ordered, his force recon training automatically shifting him into combat command mode. "Priority 1 is child extraction. Priority 2 is predator distraction. We're going in hot, and we're bringing her home alive." If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. The 12 Texas Brotherhood members who responded to Emma Rodriguez's crisis represented some of the most dangerous and specialized training available to American military forces. Former Force Recon Marines, Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, and Air Force pararescue specialists, all united by their commitment to protecting innocent life, regardless of personal risk or impossible odds. The tactical situation they faced was unprecedented in civilian emergency response. Caesar the lion had escaped from Wildwood Safari Park, a failing wildlife facility that had been operating with minimal security and inadequate animal care for months, before finally losing control of one of their most dangerous predators. The park's owner, Jake Morrison, had been cutting costs on everything from animal feed to fence maintenance, creating conditions that made an escape inevitable. Caesar had been underfed, poorly housed, and increasingly agitated before finally breaking through a weakened fence section to find himself free in the Texas countryside with a small child nearby. Steele dismounted his Harley 50 yards from where Emma stood frozen, his marine training automatically calculating attack patterns, escape routes, and intervention strategies. The lion had not yet committed to his attack, but every second of delay increased the probability that Caesar would trigger his kill sequence. "Doc, what's our medical protocol if this goes wrong?" Steele asked through tactical communications, understanding that lion attacks typically resulted in massive trauma that required immediate advanced medical intervention. Massive blood loss, potential spinal injury, crushing trauma to skull and rib cage, Doc replied with clinical precision. "She'll need immediate trauma surgery if she survives initial contact. We have maybe 30 seconds before he decides to attack." Master Sergeant Tony Scout Rodriguez, a former Army Ranger whose reconnaissance skills had saved countless lives in Afghanistan, was positioning himself for the most dangerous flanking maneuver of his career. "Steele, I can get between them, but if that cat turns on me, I'm probably dead." "Negative, Scout," Steele replied immediately. "We do this together or not at all. No one dies alone today." "Tell me, have you ever saved someone?" Steele asked himself as he moved toward the most dangerous rescue of his life. If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep? The intervention strategy that followed would be studied by animal behavior specialists and tactical rescue experts for years to come. Steele's marine training had taught him that predators responded to displays of overwhelming force and coordinated threats that made them recalculate the cost-benefit of their intended attack. "All units, intimidation formation," Steele commanded as he began moving towards Caesar and Emma. "Engines at maximum volume, synchronized approach, make ourselves look like the bigger threat." 12. Harley-Davidson motorcycles began executing a tactical maneuver that had never been attempted before, using motorcycle engines as acoustic weapons to overwhelm a lion's sensory system and force him to abandon his attack on a human child. The mechanical thunder created by 12 high-performance engines, operating at maximum volume, was unlike anything Caesar had experienced during his years in captivity. The sound was loud enough to trigger every instinct that told him unknown threats might be more dangerous than the small prey he had been stalking. Corporal James Phoenix Martinez, a former Air Force pararescue specialist whose training included animal behavior under stress, was monitoring Caesar's responses to their intervention. "Lion is showing confusion and defensive posturing," he reported. "The acoustic assault is working, but he hasn't abandoned the attack position yet." The breakthrough came when Steele made a decision that violated every rule of safe animal interaction. but represented exactly the kind of calculated risk that Marine Force recon training had prepared him for. He dismounted his motorcycle and began walking directly towards Caesar, using his own body as bait to draw the lion's attention away from Emma. "Steele, what the hell are you doing?" Tank demanded through radio communications. "Making myself a bigger target than she is," Steele replied calmly as he approached the lion with steady, non-threatening movements. "If he's going to attack someone, better it's me than her." The moment when Steele positioned himself between Caesar and Emma was witnessed by 11 combat veterans who understood exactly what their commander was risking. A 400-pound lion could kill a grown man in seconds, but Steele's intervention had created the tactical opening they needed for child extraction. "Doc, child extraction now," Steele commanded without taking his eyes off Caesar, who was now focused on the adult male who had entered his territory rather than the small child who no longer appeared to be the easiest target available. Doc Patterson moved toward Emma with the careful precision that 22 years of combat medicine had taught him, approaching her from an angle that kept Steele between her and the lion. "Sweetheart, I'm going to pick you up and carry you to safety," he said in the gentle voice he had used with wounded civilians throughout his military career. Emma's response was remarkable. Instead of panicking or running, she followed Doc's instructions with the trust that children instinctively gave to adults who projected competence and protection. Her cooperation would prove crucial for the successful extraction that followed. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. The child extraction phase of the rescue required Steele to maintain his position as primary target, while Doc carried Emma to safety behind the protective barrier of 11 motorcycles, whose riders were prepared to engage Caesar if he decided to attack their commander. "Package secured," Doc announced as he reached safety with Emma in his arms. "Child is unharmed, showing signs of shock but no physical injuries." "Steele, get the hell out of there," Tank commanded as Caesar began showing increased agitation at the number of humans who had entered his territory. But Steele's withdrawal from his position between Caesar and the child required the kind of tactical patience that Force recon training had taught him to maintain even under extreme pressure. Moving too quickly could trigger Caesar's chase instinct, while staying too long increased the probability that the lion would attack out of territorial aggression. The successful completion of Steele's withdrawal was achieved through a coordinated distraction created by Scout Rodriguez, who used his motorcycle to create movement and sound that drew Caesar's attention away from Steele's position. The tactical coordination allowed Steele to reach safety without triggering an attack. "All units clear. Predator contained," Steele announced as he reached the safety of the group formation. "Mission accomplished, 0 casualties." But the rescue was far from over. Caesar remained loose in an area where other children, hikers, or rural residents could encounter him. The Texas Brotherhood had saved Emma, but they now faced the challenge of ensuring that no one else would be threatened by a loose lion. Staff Sergeant Mike Hawk Patterson, a former police officer whose law enforcement experience included coordination with animal control services, was already coordinating with professional wildlife management teams who would be responsible for Caesar's safe capture and return to appropriate facilities. Animal Control ETA 30 minutes, Wildlife Management Team ETA 45 minutes, Hawk reported. "We need to maintain area security until professional capture teams arrive." "Nod." The area security mission required the Brotherhood to establish a perimeter that would prevent Caesar from wandering into populated areas, while also ensuring that curious civilians didn't approach the dangerous animal. Their military training in establishing defensive perimeters proved invaluable for civilian protection. Emma Rodriguez's parents, Maria and Carlos Rodriguez, arrived at the scene 20 minutes after her rescue, having been contacted by emergency services who had been coordinated with by the Brotherhood. Their relief at finding their daughter safe was overwhelming and emotional. "How can we thank you?" Maria asked Steele as she held Emma tightly, still shaking from the realization of how close they had come to losing their daughter. "You saved her life." "Gee, ma'am, protecting children is what we do," Steele replied with quiet pride. "She's safe now, and that's all that matters." "Tell me, have you ever saved someone?" Maria asked Steele, tears streaming down her face as she realized the magnitude of what these strangers had risked for her daughter. If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep? The professional wildlife capture that followed was coordinated by Dr. Patricia Chen, a wildlife veterinarian who specialized in large carnivore management and had been called in specifically to handle Caesar's safe capture and evaluation. Her assessment of the situation demonstrated the extreme danger that Emma had faced. "Caesar is a mature male lion weighing approximately 420 pounds, Dr. Chen reported as the capture team prepared their equipment. "He's undernourished and stressed from poor captive conditions, which makes him more dangerous than a well-fed animal would be. The child was in immediate mortal danger." The capture operation required specialized equipment and tranquilizer drugs that would render Caesar unconscious safely without causing permanent harm. The process took over an hour and required careful coordination between veterinary professionals and law enforcement personnel. During the capture operation, the Brotherhood maintained protective security while also providing emotional support for Emma, who had formed an immediate attachment to the men who had saved her from the most terrifying experience of her young life. "Why did you help me?" Emma asked Steele during one of their conversations while they waited for the capture to be completed. "Because protecting people is our job," Steele replied simply, "and because you're a very brave little girl who deserved to be safe." The investigation that followed revealed that Wildwood Safari Park had been operating with multiple safety violations and inadequate security measures that made Caesar's escape predictable and preventable. The park was immediately closed, pending criminal and civil investigations into their negligent operations. Emma's medical evaluation at the hospital revealed no physical injuries, but documented severe psychological trauma that would require specialized counseling to address. The experience of facing a lion attack had created the kind of terror that could affect her development unless properly treated. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the child psychologist who evaluated Emma after her rescue, was impressed by her resilience and her positive response to the men who had saved her. "Emma shows remarkable emotional stability considering what she experienced," Dr. Martinez reported. "Her trust in the Brotherhood members suggests that she understands they represent safety and protection." The criminal investigation into Wildwood Safari Park resulted in multiple felony charges against the owner and staff members whose negligence had created the conditions that led to Caesar's escape and Emma's near-death experience. The park's operating license was permanently revoked. But for the Texas Brotherhood, the legal outcomes were secondary to the knowledge that they had prevented a tragedy and saved the life of an innocent child who had been placed in danger by adult negligence and greed. 6 months after her rescue from Caesar the lion, 7-year-old Emma Rodriguez had transformed from a traumatized child into a confident, joyful little girl who had found an extended family of 12 protective uncles who called themselves the Texas Brotherhood. The men who had saved her life had become the most important people in her world, teaching her about courage, strength, and the kind of love that put other people's safety before your own comfort. Steele Rodriguez sat in Emma's family living room, reviewing the latest wildlife sanctuary inspection reports while the sound of motorcycles arriving for their weekly family dinner echoed from the driveway. The modest house had been transformed with security upgrades and safety modifications, but more importantly, it had become the emotional center of an organization that now understood their mission included protecting not just communities, but the specific little girl who had captured all their hearts. The new wildlife protection laws are working. Steele reported to Emma's parents as he studied the latest legislative updates. Every wildlife facility in Texas now has mandatory security requirements and emergency response protocols. No child will ever face what Emma faced because of negligent animal management. Emma smiled as she watched Brotherhood members setting up tables for their weekly gathering, many of them veterans who had become the grandfathers and uncles she had never had. Her relationship with each of them was unique. Steele was her protector-in-chief. Doc was her medical advisor who taught her first aid. Tank was her strategy teacher who helped with homework using military planning principles. The relationship between Emma and the Brotherhood had evolved far beyond the dramatic rescue that had brought them together. The little girl had become the heart of their organization's family structure, providing the kind of pure love and civilian joy that helped combat veterans process their transition from military to peacetime life. "Tell me about the Emma Rodriguez Child Protection Foundation," her mother Maria requested, noting the detailed program proposals spread across Steele's briefcase related to the non-profit organization that had been established in her daughter's honor. "We're now providing safety education programs for children throughout Texas, teaching them how to recognize dangerous situations and get help from trusted adults," Steele explained enthusiastically. "Emma's experience has shown us that children can survive incredible dangers when they know how to respond appropriately and when adults are willing to risk everything to protect them." The Emma Rodriguez Child Protection Foundation represented something unprecedented in child safety education. Military veterans using their tactical training and protective expertise to teach children practical survival skills while also developing adult response networks that could provide immediate intervention when children faced danger. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the child psychologist who had been working with Emma since her rescue, was amazed by her emotional development and resilience, despite experiencing one of the most traumatic events a child could survive. "Emma's recovery has exceeded every psychological prediction we made," she reported during a presentation to the American Association of Child Psychology. "Her transformation demonstrates the powerful protective effect that strong adult relationships can have on childhood trauma recovery." The secret to Emma's remarkable healing wasn't just the therapy she had received. It was the Brotherhood's understanding that children who had faced mortal danger needed more than professional treatment to recover. They needed protection, love, adventure, and the knowledge that powerful adults would always be available to keep them safe. Dr. Martinez's research had documented measurable improvements in Emma's cognitive development, emotional regulation, social confidence, and physical courage that correlated directly with her integration into the Brotherhood family structure and their consistent demonstration that she was valued and protected. Emma's case challenges conventional assumptions about childhood trauma and recovery, Dr. Martinez explained to colleagues studying pediatric trauma treatment. When children have consistent access to protective adults who validate their worth and ensure their safety, their healing capacity exceeds what psychology predicts based on trauma severity alone. Doc Patterson had become Emma's personal safety coordinator, using his SEAL medical training to teach her basic first aid, while also serving as her advocate with healthcare providers and schools that needed to understand her unique background and ongoing protective needs. "Emma's not just a patient or a student, she's family," Doc explained to teachers and medical professionals who worked with her. "She's learned things about danger and survival that most children never experience, but she's also learned that there are adults who will literally risk death to protect her." The integration of Emma's experience into her educational and social development had created unique learning opportunities. Her teachers reported that she showed exceptional leadership qualities, advanced problem-solving abilities, and a mature understanding of safety and responsibility that influenced her entire class positively. "Tell me, have you ever saved someone?" Emma asked Doc during one of their first aid practice sessions, curious about whether he had rescued other children like her. Doc's answer became a teaching moment about service, courage, and the responsibility that came with special training. "I've helped many people during my military service and with the Brotherhood," he explained, "but saving you was the most important rescue I've ever been part of, because you were so brave and trusted us to keep you safe." If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep? Tank Williams had applied his Army Ranger training to developing a comprehensive child safety education curriculum that taught children how to recognize, avoid, and respond to various forms of danger, while also building their confidence and decision-making abilities. Children like Emma face dangers that adults create through negligence, criminal behavior, or poor judgment, Tank explained during a presentation to the National Association of Elementary School Principals. "Our program teaches children practical skills for surviving dangerous situations, while also educating adults about their responsibilities for maintaining safe environments." The safety education program included age-appropriate training in situational awareness, emergency communication, basic first aid, and coordination with protective adult networks that could provide immediate assistance when children encountered threats. Emma had become the program's primary student teacher, helping other children learn safety skills while demonstrating that surviving scary experiences could make someone stronger rather than more fearful. Her participation in educational presentations throughout Texas had inspired hundreds of children to take safety training seriously. When Emma tells other kids about staying calm and trusting good adults during scary situations, they listen because she's actually survived something terrifying, Tank observed during one of his program evaluations. "She's proof that children can be brave and smart when they need to be." Scout Rodriguez had channeled his Army intelligence expertise into investigating the broader animal welfare issues that had led to Caesar's escape and Emma's near-death experience, working closely with law enforcement and regulatory agencies to prevent similar incidents. Emma's case was part of a larger pattern of negligent wildlife management throughout Texas, Scout explained to state legislators during hearings about animal facility regulation. Wildwood Safari Park wasn't the only facility operating with inadequate security and animal care. Emma was lucky to survive, but other children might not be. Scout's investigation had revealed systematic problems in wildlife facility regulation, inspection, and emergency response that created ongoing dangers for both animals and the public. His military intelligence training had been invaluable for identifying patterns and connections that civilian investigators might miss. The regulatory changes that followed Emma's rescue included mandatory security assessments, emergency response planning, animal welfare standards, and public safety protocols that were designed to prevent any child from facing the danger that Emma had survived. Emma's experience has led to legislation that will protect thousands of children from similar dangers, Scout reported during the Foundation's first annual meeting. Her survival created the political momentum needed to close regulatory loopholes that wildlife industry lobbyists had maintained for years. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. Phoenix Martinez had established a specialized emergency response program that prepared first responders for complex rescue situations involving children and dangerous animals, using lessons learned from Emma's rescue to develop protocols that could save lives in similar circumstances. Traditional emergency response training doesn't prepare people for situations like Emma faced, Phoenix explained during presentations to emergency services conferences. Our program teaches first responders how to coordinate child extraction with animal behavior management using military tactical principles. The emergency response training had been adopted by fire departments, police agencies, and emergency medical services throughout Texas, creating a network of professionals who could respond effectively to situations involving children threatened by dangerous animals, whether those animals were escaped from facilities or encountered in natural settings. Emma had participated in training demonstrations, showing emergency responders how children might behave during animal encounters and helping them understand the importance of calm, confident adult intervention that reassured rather than frightened young victims. Emma helps emergency responders understand that children in danger need to see adults who are in control and confident, Phoenix observed during one of his training sessions. When she demonstrates how she followed Doc's instructions during her rescue, it teaches professionals how to communicate effectively with frightened children. Hawk Patterson had developed a comprehensive wildlife facility monitoring program that ensured all animal parks, zoos, and private wildlife collections in their region maintained appropriate safety standards and emergency response capabilities. Emma's rescue shouldn't have been necessary if proper safety protocols had been in place, Hawk explained to wildlife industry representatives during regulatory compliance meetings. Our monitoring program helps facilities maintain standards that protect both animals and the public. The monitoring program included regular safety inspections, emergency response testing, animal welfare assessments, and coordination with local emergency services to ensure that any problems could be addressed before they created dangers for visitors or animals. The program had identified and corrected dozens of safety violations at wildlife facilities throughout Texas, preventing conditions that could have led to other animal escapes or public safety incidents. "Tell me, have you ever saved someone?" Hawk asked facility managers during inspections, challenging them to understand their responsibility for public safety and animal welfare. If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep? The annual Emma Rodriguez Day celebration had become one of the largest family-friendly events in East Texas, bringing together thousands of people whose lives had been touched by her story or the Brotherhood's broader community protection services. The event commemorated not just her rescue from Caesar, but the ongoing work that had grown from that terrifying afternoon. 6 months ago, a lion almost killed me because adults didn't keep me safe, Emma addressed the enormous crowd during the anniversary celebration, speaking with the poise and confidence of someone much older than her 7 years. Today, my Brotherhood family has created safety programs that will protect thousands of children throughout Texas. The celebration included educational presentations about wildlife safety, child protection techniques, emergency response demonstrations, and testimonials from families who had benefited from the safety programs that grew out of Emma's experience. 8-year-old Marcus Chen took the microphone to share his experience. "Last month I got lost in the woods during a family camping trip and remembered what Emma's safety program taught me about staying in one place and signaling for help. The Brotherhood volunteers found me in 2 hours because I knew what to do." Marcus's successful rescue using techniques taught in Emma's safety program embodied everything that the little girl and the Brotherhood were working to achieve through their community-based child protection initiatives. 9-year-old Sofia Martinez shared her story about recognizing and reporting an adult who was behaving inappropriately toward children at her school. "Emma's program taught me to trust my feelings when adults make me uncomfortable, and to tell trusted grown-ups immediately. The Brotherhood members helped my family report the bad man to police. The community that had formed around Emma's rescue represented something unprecedented in child safety services. A sustainable collaboration between military veterans, child protection professionals, educational institutions, and law enforcement agencies that had created measurable improvements in child safety throughout the region." Local zoo director Dr. Patricia Rodriguez spoke about the practical impact of their wildlife safety efforts during the anniversary celebration. Before Emma's programs, we had 3 security violations and 2 minor animal incidents each year, she testified. We haven't had a single safety problem in 6 months because the Brotherhood's monitoring program helps us maintain standards that protect both children and animals. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. 1 year after her rescue from Caesar, Emma Rodriguez had been appointed as the honorary spokesperson for the Texas Commission on Child Safety and Wildlife Management, where her programs and philosophy were being implemented throughout the state. The 7-year-old who had once faced death from a lion was now influencing government policies that protected children from various forms of danger. The commission appointment represented official recognition of Emma's expertise and the effectiveness of the community-centered approach to child protection that had grown from her rescue. But for Emma personally, it represented an opportunity to ensure that other children would never have to experience the terror she had survived. Emma's survival and recovery have demonstrated that children can not only heal from traumatic experiences, but can become powerful advocates for protecting other children, commented Dr. Robert Williams, the Commission's chair. Her programs show how military veterans, child protection professionals, and community members can work together to create environments where children can grow up safely. Emma's first recommendation to the Commission was the establishment of state funding for community-based child safety programs that combined veteran volunteer services with professional child protection and educational services. Her proposal was based on documented results from the Brotherhood's programs rather than theoretical approaches to child safety. The Commission's unanimous approval of Emma's recommendations led to the creation of the Texas Child Protection Initiative, a state-funded program that provided grants for veteran organizations to develop child safety programs in coordination with schools, law enforcement, and social services. The initiative was the first of its kind in the United States. The Brotherhood's child protection model had been adopted by veteran organizations in 12 states, creating a network of volunteer emergency responders who understood that protecting communities required special attention to the safety and well-being of children who were most vulnerable to adult negligence and predatory behavior. Emma's role with the Commission required her to participate in meetings and presentations that would have challenged many adults, but her natural leadership abilities and her understanding of both danger and protection made her an effective advocate for policies that served children's real needs. I can help lawmakers understand what children really need to be safe because I've been in danger and I know what it feels like to be scared, Emma explained to Commission members during policy discussions. Adults make better decisions when they remember that children are real people with real feelings who deserve to be protected. Tell me, have you ever saved someone? Emma asked Commission members, challenging them to understand their responsibility for creating policies that could save children's lives. If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep? 2 years after 12 motorcycles had converged on the sound of a child's scream and a lion's roar, the ripple effects of Emma's rescue continued to spread throughout the Southwest and beyond. The Brotherhood's model of veteran-led child protection had been implemented in over 70 cities, creating a network of programs that had helped thousands of children develop safety skills while providing adult protective networks. The expansion had been carefully managed to ensure that child safety standards and program effectiveness weren't compromised by rapid growth. New chapters were required to complete extensive training in child psychology, safety education, and emergency response, demonstrating commitment to both veteran welfare and child protection. The Brotherhood had grown to over 400 active members across 10 states, with chapters providing emergency response, safety education, family support, and advocacy services that served thousands of families annually. Their success with child-focused programming had attracted support from major foundations and government agencies interested in innovative approaches to community protection. Emma's influence extended beyond direct service delivery to fundamental changes in how communities understood the relationship between adult responsibility and child safety. Her programs demonstrated that effective child protection required coordination between multiple systems rather than relying on single agencies or institutions. Emma taught us that every child saved from danger has the potential to save others, Steele reflected during his presentation at the International Conference on Child Protection. The little girl we rescued from a lion has created programs that protect thousands of children from all kinds of dangers that adults create or fail to prevent. The presentation brought together over 8,000 professionals from around the world who were studying innovative approaches to child safety and protection. Emma's story and the Brotherhood's programs had influenced policy discussions in 15 countries dealing with various forms of child endangerment. Emma, now 8 years old and serving as the Brotherhood's Director of Child Safety Education, had been chosen to deliver the closing address at the international conference. Her transformation from terrified victim to confident advocate represented the kind of growth that effective protection and support could inspire in children who survived traumatic experiences. 2 years ago, a lion almost killed me because adults made bad decisions that put me in danger, Emma told the international audience with remarkable composure and clarity. Today, my Brotherhood family and I work every day to make sure adults make better decisions that keep children safe. We can't prevent every scary thing from happening, but we can make sure children know how to survive and that good adults will always be there to help them. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. 5 years after her rescue from Caesar, Dr. Emma Rodriguez, she had been awarded an honorary doctorate in child safety education from the University of Texas, was serving as a consultant for the National Child Protection Administration, helping develop protocols for protecting children from various forms of danger throughout the United States. The lesson I learned that day wasn't just that good people exist when you need help, Emma told audiences at the National Conference on Child Safety, speaking with the wisdom and confidence of someone whose experiences had taught her profound truths about courage and protection. The lesson was that every adult has the responsibility to be someone's hero, and every child has the right to expect that adults will keep them safe. Emma's presentation at the National Conference included statistical analysis of 5 years of Brotherhood programs, over 15,000 children trained in safety skills, 12,000 adults educated about child protection responsibilities, 8,000 families supported through safety crises, and measurable improvements in child safety outcomes across dozens of communities. But Emma's presentation focused more on individual stories than statistics, specific examples of children who had used safety skills to survive dangerous situations, adults who had intervened to protect children from harm, and communities that had developed comprehensive child protection networks that prevented tragedies before they occurred. These aren't just success stories, Emma explained to the national audience with remarkable eloquence for her age. These are proof that children can be strong and smart when adults teach them the right skills, and that communities can keep children safe when everyone understands that protecting children is everyone's job. The national attention had led to requests for technical assistance from organizations throughout the world, as countries dealing with various forms of child endangerment wanted to understand how veteran organizations could be effectively integrated into child protection systems. The Brotherhood's training materials had been translated into 18 languages and adapted for different cultural contexts, but the core principles remained consistent: adult responsibility for child safety, integration of emergency response with prevention education, and understanding that child protection required both professional services and community commitment. Tell me, have you ever saved someone? Emma asked international audiences, challenging them to understand their personal responsibility for creating safer environments for children in their own communities. If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep? 10 years after 12 bikers had heard a child scream and a lion roar, Emma Rodriguez continued to serve as a child safety advocate while living a rich, protected life surrounded by the chosen family that had saved her and whom she had transformed through her courage and wisdom. The Brotherhood had trained child protection teams in over 30 states, had contributed to the prevention of thousands of injuries and deaths among children, and had influenced fundamental changes in how communities approach child safety. The location where Emma had faced Caesar had been converted into the Emma Rodriguez Child Safety Education Center, a facility that provided training for children, families, and professionals, while serving as a memorial to the courage that ordinary people could show when children needed protection. The mainstream media had eventually discovered Emma's story, but only after it had already inspired a movement that transformed how communities approached child protection. The coverage had helped spread their model to other regions and organizations, but media attention was secondary to the practical reality of lives saved and children protected. The Brotherhood proves that sometimes the most important miracles happen when good people run toward danger instead of away from it, observed television journalist Maria Rodriguez during a documentary about Emma's rescue. These veterans didn't just save one child from a lion. They created a movement that has protected thousands of children from all kinds of dangers that adults create or fail to prevent. But for Emma and the Brotherhood, their success was measured not in media coverage, but in the thousands of children who were living safely, because someone had taught them survival skills and someone else had committed to being available when protection was needed. The biker club that had stopped everything to save one child from a lion had created a legacy that continued to protect innocent lives throughout North America. Emma's story demonstrated that angels sometimes wear leather, ride motorcycles, and prove that the most important battles are fought to protect children who depend on adults to keep them safe. Her transformation from terrified victim to confident leader showed that children could not only survive traumatic experiences, but could become powerful advocates for creating safer communities. The Brotherhood had proven that protecting children required more than just emergency response. It required the commitment to building communities where every adult understood their responsibility to keep children safe. Tell me, have you ever saved someone? Emma's story asked everyone who heard it, challenging them to understand that heroism wasn't just for people with special training, but for anyone willing to put children's safety before their own comfort. Caesar the lion had been relocated to a proper wildlife sanctuary where he lived out his remaining years in appropriate conditions. But the protection that had surrounded Emma that day lived on in every safety program they had created, every child they had educated, every adult they had trained, and every community that had learned to value children's safety as everyone's responsibility. Emma's legacy would continue for generations, proving that sometimes the smallest victims can inspire the largest movements, that courage can be learned and taught, and that when good adults commit to protecting children, ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things that save countless innocent lives.